stumbled upon this book that I have. It's been laying around for a while, and I thought this might be a good time to read it because I have not read it yet. So this is the book, and I will read the author's note and a itsy tiny part of the first chapter, and I will start with "In memory of Sergeant T.J. Hagebuck of the Los Angeles Police." Then we have the table of contents. Then we have a quote: "Power, like a desolating pestilence, pollutes whatever it touches, and obedience, bane of all genius, virtue, freedom, truth, makes slaves of men and of the human frame a mechanized automation." That was a quote by Mary Shelley from 1813. Okay, author's note. I didn't want to read the first part because here first he talks about the ripperologists. So I will skip that part and continue right here. "This book has no interest in the House of Mirrors, and despite selective admiration for some, no interest in ripperologists. I don't believe this collective could catch the object of its aspiration in 1,000 years, and furthermore, I don't believe in the mystery of Jack the Ripper either." We all know the story, at least the blurb on the paperbacks. "It is the autumn of 1888. The cobbled streets of Whitechapel echo to the chilling footsteps of a ruthless killer. Out of the voted darkness came the subhuman nemesis of blood-hungry evil. Taunting the frantic police, he visited merciless death on 5 desperate women, nothing to speak as his witness but their hideously mutilated remains. He left no clue, but went as silently as he came, leaving nothing but a name that will forever be etched into the annals of criminal infamy: Jack the Ripper." Ah, Jack the Ripper, fork to taste. This book is a repudiation of virtually everything ripperology has ever written. Anyone who wishes is welcome to have their ripper back and retire with him to the nearest gaslit alley. I tend towards a cynical point of view. In politics, I expect the worst and usually get it. But I had no idea of what I was in for with this. Buried in the mystery of the Ripper atrocities is a scandal that ain't much short of incredible. Exploring it was like pulling at a small wizened root that, as it disinters, is discovered to be connected to an enormous root system, deeper and more protectively concealed than I could ever have imagined. I've spent rather a while inquiring into this mystery, and incrementally I have learned to loathe much of what was the Victorian governing class. Wealth was a deity in Victorian England, and everything was subservient to the maintenance of it, underpinned by their right to rule, their cupidity, and institutionalized hypocrisy. These defects constituted a potent amalgamation of the forces that conspire to turn this monster into a mystery. There's a perverse, almost heroic status that has evolved around this prick, as though he were someone special rather than the epitome of all that is cruel and a goddamned repugnance. His only claim to the extraordinary is his anonymity, his so-called mystery. And even that doesn't belong to him, but was the gift of others. There's a hybrid of ripperology responsible for a dizzying variety of publications over the last half-century. By a process of attrition and endless industry, this coterie of authors has come to own this history. They are self-appointed experts and guardians of flat earth thinking. Under constrictions of the herd, and by some design, they have constructed a formidable camouflage around this criminal. It is necessary to break through it before there is any possibility of discovering the identity of our Victorian psychopath. Busting Jack entails an unraveling of the root system that is way beyond the constipated strictures of ripperology. During the Second World War, there was an interrogator for Army counterintelligence by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Oreste Pinto. It was his task to break the cover of enemy spies, and he's one of my weirder heroes. In 1942, Pinto had a man at the other side of his desk who instinct told him had to be an enemy agent. Before arriving at the Colonel office, just off the Strand in central London, this suspect had been through many searing investigations and survived them all. Notwithstanding that, the authorities continued to harbor suspicions, but nobody could break him. So what did Pinto think? Pinto interrogated this man over a period of days. The suspect had an impeccable Oxford accent, excellent socio-geographic knowledge, backed up by documentation that was as good as it gets, down to the last little parochial, oh, that's a new word, parochial, I think, nuance. He had an answer for everything and seemed totally and utterly kosher. Even so, Pinto was convinced he was dealing with an exceptionally talented spy whose true provenance was Berlin. But he couldn't crack him, so he invited him out to lunch. 10 minutes later, they were walking up the Strand, about to cross it to go to the chosen restaurant when, as they stepped off the curb, Pinto screamed, "Look out!" And he got his German because the bastard looked the wrong way. We drive on the left in England, old boy. That is an expert in action. In that one inspired moment, all the lies, all the carefully contrived subterfuge, and all the mystery fell to bits. I'm afraid my narrative will take rather longer to make its point than that flash of inspiration from Pinto, but I believe that the Ripper is just as vulnerable. Nailing this aberration means looking beyond the masquerade and requires but a single word. So look out, Jack. We're stepping off the curb, and I'm going to bust your arse. Bruce Robinson, 2nd of May, 2015. So the first chapter, as I said, I'll just read a little tiny bit, is called All the Widow's Men. It starts with a quote from Margaret Thatcher from 1983. She said, "We must return to Victorian values." Reactionary nostalgia for the proprieties of Victorian England is unfortunate, like a whore looking under the bed for her virginity. Thatcher was perhaps confused because there were no drug busts in 19th century England, few prosecutions for cruelty to children, and little recorded sex crime. But who needs to force his attentions with 1,200 harlots on the streets? There was sex aplenty at prices all could afford. At the bargain end, you could fuck for the price of a mug of tea. So much to Victorian values. Yeah, so that's it for now. See you later.